All right, ladies, welcome. Welcome into this session. So, I'm going to tell you why doing everything yourself is actually a trauma response. I'm going to break it all down. I'm going to give you the reasons why that is in just a moment. But first, if you don't know who I am, my name is Fantana Shatamsa. I am a trauma informed holistic wellness consultant. So, I deal a lot with body based healing. I'm a registered massage therapist, also a doula. I'm also a Reiki practitioner and a Kemetic yoga teacher. So, my work is primarily with women, high performing women who are feeling stressed and burnt out and just completely dysregulated and looking to find calm and ease in their lives. And so, what I help women do is somatic heal. So, heal and process the trauma that is living in your body that you might not even be aware of, that's showing up as chronic pain, chronic headaches, chronic clenching, jaw pain, hip pain, whatever it is. That is more than just a physical issue. It's a manifestation of something deeper, some emotional trauma, some physical trauma that is blocked and is stagnant and needs to come through. So I help women heal that out of their bodies. And I also work with nervous system health, so nervous system re-regulating, working through the sympathetic nervous system, parasympathetic nervous system, working to lower cortisol naturally and to help balance cortisol levels through the body and just help you to feel more calm and relaxed and in your feminine. And the third thing that I help women do is reconnect and master their feminine, but not just any feminine, your divine feminine energy. So, this is through self actualization, rebuilding self trust, and really knowing who we are. Because most women, we don't even realize that we are created as an equal to the divine, as an equal to the divine masculine, right? Most of us, we grew up in church or in religions that just glorified men only, right, as leaders and heads. And absolutely, men be the leader, be the head, but there is divine feminine principle that needs to be respected and honored. And once we know who that is, we move out of that lack energy, out of that chasing energy, out of just performance and people pleasing, and we really begin to embody and understand who we are on a spiritual level. So that's what I help women do. And my story, so, I was a completely dysregulated, stressed out, burnt out single mom for many years. I was in the health and wellness industry for probably, I would say, 15 years now, 15 plus years. So I studied health sciences. I worked in nursing homes, worked in hospitals as a nurse's aide, then went on to study, massage therapy, and went into like neuroanatomy, systemic physiology, all those things, all those health science programs. And that was all fine and well. Began my practice, but I was still feeling disconnected and dysregulated. And what, I didn't realize is that there was still a lot of trauma stuck in my body, stored in my body. And a lot of the chronic conditions that we see are manifestations of that. So, working in the nursing homes, working in healthcare for so long, I saw what happens when we don't take action on preventative health and we wait for it to manifest into chronic long-term, illness and disease. And that's 9 times out of 10 stress related. This is all because of, the stress that you've experienced in your life or cellular, changes that happen, due to trauma that's been passed on from your family. Myself in particular, I was traumatized as a young girl. I, experienced early childhood SA for a few years of my life, and that just completely threw me off from a young age. So, it ruined my family dynamics, ruined my ability to trust and, show up as my true authentic self. And so I was constantly in performance mode, constantly in high achieving mode because I did not trust anybody. And it wasn't until I really started exploring the ancient wisdom even further. So I took the modern science that I knew, and I did all the things. I went to therapy. I went to yoga. I was doing all the things, but there was still a disconnect. And it wasn't until I went deeper into ancient wisdom, ancient history, Kemetic history, traditional Chinese medicine, traditional Japanese medicine, ancient Egyptian, ancient African holistic ways of healing, and realizing, understanding how to liberate myself as a divine feminine. That's when I started being like, okay, my voice matters, my sensuality matters, my sexuality matters. There's no shame in what I am and who I am and how I show up, or my body. And once I began releasing some of that shame and guilt and really coming back and honoring myself as a woman, as a divine woman, that's when it all started to change, right? I stopped feeling guilty for asking help. I stopped feeling guilty for being vulnerable. I started calling people out, right? That is a part of healing too, setting boundaries. Being truthful and honest about who you are, what you're looking for, and aligning yourself with that. And so that's really what I help women do, is to be honest, be true about who you are, what you want, and then self-actualizing, understanding that you are a divine feminine. Again, learning how to regulate your nervous system, feeling safe in new situations, particularly if you're the pattern interrupter, the pattern breaker, the cycle breaker in your family and in your life. Like, if that's you, you're gonna have to learn how to regulate your nervous system, because there hasn't really been anyone before you who is doing the amount of work in healing and setting the standards that you are. So you're going to have to learn how to feel safe in that. And of course, the somatic healing. Like, if you don't heal your body pain, if you don't look deeper into what's still buried, what's still being held, then it's going to lead you to sickness and an illness. And baby girl, we need you to be okay. There's work that needs to be done. And our job as feminine, as the woman, the divine feminine, is not to work in a way that requires us to hustle and to strategize and to perform, right? That's not our work. Our work is around healing, around beauty, around health, around creativity, bringing the things of joy and pleasure into the world, like making them not disappear, like keeping those things alive in the world so that the world can continue to operate and function. Because, looking around the world now, when you see chaos and destruction, and just, dysregulation everywhere, that's because the divine feminine was pulled out of the equation. But when we get brought in, that is our work, right? To bring the joy back, to bring the creativity back, to bring the pleasure, the joy, the beauty back. And so we need you to be okay and to feel comfortable and safe with those principles within yourself, so that you can bring that back into the world, right? And I understand most of us, as high performers, as overachievers, we haven't experienced that for a long time, right? We haven't. When was the last time you felt truly present, right? When was the last time you felt truly joyful? When was the last time you felt truly in your pleasure, safe to explore your sexuality, safe to explore your sensuality, right? When was the last time that you didn't feel any shame? When was the last time that you woke up, you had a calm morning, a relaxed day, right? When was the last time that you just laughed till your belly hurt, right? Till when was the last time you just, threw the schedule and the routine away and just went based on how you feel? When do you even check in with yourself to see how you feel, right? These are important questions. And so back to the topic of tonight, where doing everything yourself is a trauma response. I'm going to break this down for you. I'm going to tell you why, right? I'm going to give you 3 points, and then I'm going to give you a tool at the end to help you go deeper if you're ready and if you're interested. Okay, everything is an invitation for you. So why is doing everything yourself a trauma response? Number one, and the most important, doing everything yourself is the reason why you do this is because you have a lack of trust. Okay, somewhere along the line, early on, you learned that you could not trust people. Okay, maybe you did experience some sort of trauma early on, like I did. And so you looked around and you were like, okay, the people that are supposed to protect me, where are they? Right? No one's stepping in, or no one's intervening. And so with that in mind, you had to survive. You were put into survival mode really early on. And so when you learn, sorry, excuse me, when you learn that you cannot trust anyone, that creates dysregulation. Sorry, hang on one second. Ooh, not this battery wanting to die on me. Oh, 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 oh. We're not about to die today. Not this laptop trying to die. Okay. So again, early on, you learned that nobody was coming to protect you and nobody was coming to save you, right? This is unfortunate, right? And maybe it wasn't any sort of like physical trauma, but maybe it's rejection or abandonment, or like it could be a number of different things that you experienced where, trusting other people was a liability. Being vulnerable was a liability, because now if I depend on you and you provide my physical needs, you provide my shelter, my emotional needs, and you cannot be there, maybe emotionally you don't have the capacity, right? The adults don't have the capacity, then you just stop trusting people. You're like, I have to fulfill this need myself, okay? And you end up, you get heartbroken, right? Maybe you've been in a toxic relationship where you were depending on a person to show up or to pay a bill or to help you raise your kids, and they couldn't, or they chose not to, right? And so you're left with disappointment, right? Or you're left with heartbreak, with grief, right? Even if you lost somebody you love, like, even though that wasn't their fault, like you were trusting them. And there's some resentment paired with grief, which makes it complex grief, right? So there's a lot of scenarios and situations where lack of trust has manifested and has grown, which has been forced you into like, okay, I cannot depend on other people to keep me safe. I cannot be vulnerable, because if I depend on you, you can pull the rug out from underneath me, and I'm going to end up having to do it by myself anyway. So I would rather just do it myself. I'd rather just trust myself and not have to, worry about someone else providing for me, worry about someone else, possibly doing it wrong, right? I don't trust you. And I could be nice to you, right? I can be hee hee ha ha, like, you know what I mean? I can show up and show out and be around, but when it comes down to it, I'm probably not going to ask you for anything. And I'm not going to ask you for anything that matters, at least, right? And if I do and you tell me no, you do not have to tell me no twice. Like, I will never ask you again. Right? I was like this. Like, rejection. I took that rejection so hard, right? I took it as a personal flaw. Like, you're rejecting me, then that's a reflection on me. And then I create a lot of shame around it, and then it just deepens the lack of self-trust, right? So if that's you, if you don't trust anybody, I want you to know, again, there's no shame in this. There's absolutely no shame. Guys, it's like 1,000 degrees today. So I am sweating like crazy. I've never sweat this much in my house before. I don't know if there's something going on with the heating, but anyway, you're gonna see me like wiping my forehead a few times. I mean, I love a good sweat. Take the toxins out. Trust me, I love it. But yeah, if this is you, again, there's no shame in it. That lack of self, that lack of trust of other people, um, this is actually an intelligence coping mechanism, right? Your body developed this out of intelligence because it's like, I trusted someone once, I trusted someone twice, I trusted someone three times, maybe four or five times. And now I've learned the lesson, I'm not going to do it anymore, right? And even when you try, your nervous system has programmed into itself like, we're not doing this. So you got to figure this out on your own, right? And it's actually an intelligence response. There's actually nothing wrong with this. Your nervous system is doing exactly what it needs to do. However, we do need connections. We do need community. We're wired for relationships, for connection, for human connection. And so when we put walls up, like, boundaries are fine, but when we put walls up and we, don't want to let anybody in, what ends up happening, right? You're going to end up, unfortunately, old and isolated. There's not going to be anybody that's going to be around you, taking care of you or looking for you or checking for you, right? That lack of trust for other people, it's going to end up hurting you in the end, right? And we don't want that. And that's, I've seen that played out in a lot of these nursing homes, a lot of these hospitals, right? In my own family, as people age, right? Because they've put walls up, because they didn't know how to trust, right? And again, this is the people that I've known and people that I've cared for have gone through some really traumatic experiences. Maybe it's, war, like, it's survival, it's abuse, it's trauma, it's, like, hunger, famine, like being a refugee in war torn countries. Like, there's a lot of things that people experience that cause them to put walls up. But, and again, it's an intelligence response. But if we don't learn to feel safe with other people, it's going to end up leading us into isolation and loneliness. And as much as we say on the outside, like, I'm fine, I'm protecting my peace, I like being alone, I don't want to go to that thing, thanks for the invite, I'll pass. Like, the more that we say that, the more that we isolate ourselves, the lonelier we're going to feel. Like, I said this for many years. Like, I want to be, I'd rather be a single mom, right? I'd rather, have to wake up and do my own thing and have my own routine and have my own, schedule. But that's not the truth. Like, it feels safer, right? Because there's no risk and vulnerability, because, I had my heart broke, or people didn't show up the way that they promised to show up. But the truth of it is, it's actually very lonely, right? It's tough. Like, I'm very fortunate to have a village around me. Like, I have my family, I have friends around me that I do rely on, that I do depend on, that show up for me, that I've created safety in my village. Um, but, doing it from on my own for so long, and seeing women do it on their own for so long, like, that puts us out of our divine feminine, right? That puts us more into our masculine, into performing, into problem solving, into putting out fires. And that's not going to create this life of ease that we want. That's going to keep us more dysregulated and more operating in our trauma response, which we don't want to happen. Okay. So lack of trust was number one. Number two, why doing everything ourselves is a trauma response. You're doing everything yourself because this is an act of self-sabotage. Okay. You are a people pleaser. So you don't want to put a burden on somebody else, right? If you have something going on with yourself, or you are a single mom who has kids, right? And you don't want to just drop your kids off at your friends or their aunties, or your parents' house, because you feel like this is your responsibility. You chose to have these kids, so you better raise them. You better take them. And maybe someone has even physically said this, like verbally said this to you, right? Those are your kids. You chose to have them. You better take care of them, right? So you feel like you don't want to be a burden on other people by asking them for help, right? Or, maybe you are in some sort of debt, or, you're balancing a bunch of things in your household or through your business or through your work, and you don't feel like you want to ask somebody for help because you don't want to, again, be a burden on someone else. Or the other side of that is maybe you're super stressed and you're super dysregulated, that your emotions are unpredictable, right? So sometimes when someone comes to help you, maybe you have an assistant come in, or maybe you have, someone coming in to help you around the house, or someone to help you with your kids. And because you're so stressed out and dysregulated and your emotions are inconsistent, you find yourself having outbursts, right? You find yourself being short and snappy and maybe angry, being cold towards people. And you recognize that in yourself. So rather than hurting the other person, rather than causing pain to other people, you would rather, protect them and keep yourself isolated and not ask for help, right? You find yourself getting frustrated, like explaining tasks, or having to explain yourself. So you just take it all on your own, right? And this is people pleasing. Again, you don't want to be a burden. You don't want to cause like grief or extra work for someone else. So you just decide to take it out. And this is a symptom of people pleasing and self-sabotage, right? Why don't you deserve help? Why do you care more about other people's capacity than your own capacity? Right? Why do you do that? Why do you not value yourself? Why do you not see yourself as worthy? Why do you put other people's feelings above your own? You could be at your absolute limits. You could be drowning in responsibilities, drowning in stress, in demands. And you know that you're like eyeballs deep. But rather than asking for help, you're more concerned about, I don't want to put pressure on that other person. I don't want to be a liability for that other person, right? Why is that? That is something we need to dig into a little bit deeper, right? You could be dealing with a health crisis, right? Like I remember there was times when my anemia was really bad, right? My anemia was really bad, and there were mornings where I would wake up and I was feeling dizzy, and I'd be thinking that I'm passing out, and rather than asking people for help, like rather than asking for help with like drop offs or school pickups, or asking if someone can keep an eye on the kids while I just recoup a little bit, I like risked my entire life, right? I will wake up and get everybody ready and cook the meals, and I'd almost be passing out in the kitchen, right? And that's anemia, right? I started taking iron supplements and incorporating more iron into my foods to help manage that. But like, why was I so much more concerned about other people than my own health? Like, if I don't show up and be present for my kids, like if I'm not good and healthy for my kids, then like that's a disservice to them, but it's also a disservice to myself, right? So why do you not see yourself as worthy, right? You could be dealing with something even more serious as a health issue, but you don't want to tell anybody because you don't want anybody worrying about you. You don't want anyone to stress about you. You don't want them to be thinking, just like being stressed about you, right? Come on, girls. This people pleasing is going to end us. It's going to end us. And where does this even come from, and who does it benefit? When did we learn this? Right? This is society, this is colonialism, this is patriarchy. Like, this has nothing to do with us, right? And the most feminine, right? The most feminine women, the most women that are at ease or soft or experience soft life, like they're absolutely not doing everything by themselves, right? And we look at those women and we envy those women, but they have a sense of vulnerability. The ones who get taken care of, the ones who attract provision, provider partners or opportunities for support, like they're not afraid to ask, right? They don't see themselves as a burden. Asking is not weakness, right? It's actually worthiness. Asking is not weakness, it's worthiness. Ooh, you better write that one down because I'm about to write that one down. Asking is not weakness, it's worthiness. It's not that I can't do everything by myself. I can, absolutely, right? It's that I deserve help. I deserve softness, okay? So, number one was that lack of trust. Number two is that self sabotage. And number three, why do you do everything by yourself, right? How this is a trauma response. Actually, I'm going to go back to number two for a second and relate it to the trauma. We were taught through trauma that other people's needs are more important than ours, right? I asked, where did this start? How did this come from? It's a symptom of trauma, because even though physically you felt I'm not okay, you experienced some sort of trauma, right? Whether it's verbal abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, things in your relationship, environmental, disaster, whatever the trauma is, right? Your body was telling you one thing, like, I don't feel safe, I'm hurting, right? Your emotions, your mind is like, I don't like this, doesn't feel right, like, I feel unsafe, but you had to show up and perform anyway. So through that, you learned that your feelings do not matter. You learn to dissociate from what your actual needs are, and you learn to put the needs of others or the needs of the situation above your own, right? So self sabotage and people pleasing, that's actually a trauma response as well. And that then leads us to want to do everything by ourselves because, again, we don't want to be a burden. We don't want to add more stress to other people. Okay. Number three is autopilot. Autopilot is a trauma response and it causes us to do everything by ourselves. So when you are on autopilot, I talk about this in my other videos too, you're like autopilot. Okay, so we have stress. I talked about this in my other videos. Stress is normal. Stress is when the load exceeds the capacity. We all need stress actually to grow. It's very normal to experience stress. But when we get into a state of physical, mental, emotional exhaustion, that's burnout. And then we get to autopilot slash survival mode, which is like, I don't even feel. I'm just like so dissociated, I'm disconnected, and I'm just here, right? So in autopilot, you're not really feeling, right? Or you're not really feeling too much. Like you're so disconnected from yourself and what your needs are that you don't even feel the need that you could want help, right? You're so used to it. Like you're just used to doing everything by yourself. You're used to handling all the demands by yourself. You're used to piling all the stress on by yourself. And you don't actually feel anything. Maybe you don't feel stressed, you don't feel burnt out, but you're just taking it all on, like taking it all in. And this is one of the most dangerous stages to be in, because if you don't even have that awareness of, yeah, this is a lot for me, or like, I'm feeling overwhelmed, or I'm physically exhausted, right? If you're that disconnected from yourself, then this is when like real sickness and illness and disease is going to manifest, because you're ignoring everything, right? Your body is just like, probably completely inflamed. Your mind is completely dysregulated, but you are just so numb to the fact that you're just in this performance mode, right? You're just going through the motions and you're repeating cycles over and over again. You can be an autopilot for a month, like a couple of months. You could be an autopilot for a year, and you're going to feel nothing, but eventually you're going to just end up sick. Like you're going to end up sick. So you could be looking around, right? And, people might say this to you, like, how are you doing everything that you're doing? Right? You're handling everything so well. And you could be like, I don't even know. But you're just a shell of yourself, right? You're just a shell of yourself. And if you have someone in your life that's known you long enough, maybe have a conversation with them. Like, ask them, do you feel like I've changed? Like, do you feel like, maybe my personality has changed? Like, have I lost my spark, my light, like my life. You know what I mean? Um, and yeah, otherwise, you're not going to know until it gets too late, right? Like single moms. Again, I go back to this because I have a soft spot for us because I know what it's like, right? And I watched my mom do it, right? You know, even though even though my dad was in our lives, I was raised with both my mom and my dad. Like my mom was in such survival mode that like she just, she ran herself down to the ground. And I see this in a lot of single moms in motherhood, right? Where it's just you just push yourself so much. You could have a man in the house and still be a single mom, right? Yeah, hello. Who knows about that? So, this you could be so disconnected and just so used to doing the things that you just like, that's fine. I don't have to ask for help. I had one of my clients um, who was just, just pouring out her emotions, right? I guess it actually wasn't emotion. She was just telling me like all the things that she was experiencing and dealing with. And I was looking at her like, how are you handling this? How are you handling, having a child with special needs, plus having, other children, plus not having childcare, plus, in school full time, plus working full time, and you have a partner who's in the home but not really present, and you're also taking care of a parent who is also ill, and you don't even have a vehicle, so you're just like busting all over the place. Like my mind was completely blown listening to her story, and she was just like, you know what, like it's fine, like I'm actually just used to this, so this is what this is what I have to deal with. And right then and there, I was like, this girl she's not well. Like even physically, like, you could just see the inflammation, you could see the exhaustion, you could see the fatigue, you could see that she has like let herself go, right? Like physically. She let herself go mentally and spiritually, right? I'm like, what do you do to take care of yourself? Like, what do you do for yourself? And there was no response, right? There was no response. And oftentimes what happens is we turn to vices that are unhealthy, right? To numb ourselves even more. Like I'm a fan of a beverage. Okay. I have nothing against a beverage. I have nothing against a little bit of herb from time to time. That's medicine. That's a plant. I don't have anything against medicinal supports. But if you're doing it to numb and you're doing it to dissociate, that's when we got to work a little bit, into what's happening underneath, right? We got to release that inflammation out of the body, right? A lot of us are also holding on to weight, right? Holding on to water retention, right? Fluid swelling, like fat stores, because when your body again is in survival mode, we hold on to fat, we hold on to liquid, because your body doesn't know when it's going to need to fight. It doesn't know when it's going to need to, run into a cave for several weeks. So it holds on to the fat because that's what it's going to have to live off of until it gets nourishment again, until it feels safe again. So we think that we're doing ourselves these favors by doing everything ourselves, right? But that's not the case, ladies. That's not the case. So being aware of these things, like maybe you are in a position where you're not trusting anybody, right? Or maybe you are in a position where you are overly people pleasing and you're self sabotaging. Or maybe you're in a situation where you're just on autopilot and you just say that you feel fine, but really you just don't feel anything. And whatever situation you're in, I just want you to know that, again, there is no shame. These are actually intelligence responses. These are signs that your nervous system is doing what it needs to do. You experience some trauma, some heartbreak, some grief, some loss. And you're just trying to keep it together, right? You're trying to keep it together, but you don't need to do this all alone. You don't need to be dealing with this all alone. And you can have all the supports in the world around you and still feel alone, right? You can have extended family, you can have a partner in the home, you can have a nanny, you can have all these things and still feel alone, because I have been there with all the supports. And you can have nothing, right? Maybe you are single momming in your house, maybe you don't have family around you and you feel like you don't have anything, but you still have something, right? And I tell this to the ladies, like, if you feel like you have nothing, we need to feel safe with connection. We need to go out to the churches around you, go to the family resource centers, go out to like the mom groups, right? And start connecting with people and feel safe with those connections. And if you one of those moms who has a bunch of support around you, for you it's safety. Like you're just dysregulated internally, right? So you need to come back to yourself and feel safe within yourself. And no matter which situation you're in, um, there is a light at the end of the tunnel, right? I've helped over 1,000 women get out of stress and burnout, chronic stress and burnout, and live a life that feels calm and regulated, and learn how to feel safe again, learn how to trust people again. And if that is something that you desire, if you feel like you want to enjoy your life, right? You're tired of letting burnout and survival mode steal your joy, steal your presence. You're just watching days go by and you feel like you're not present. I want you to come into the sanctuary, okay? I want you to come in and join us 7 days for free. Excuse me. And in those 7 days, I have a 5-day journey, which is called 5 days to feel safe in your body. And each of those days, 5 minutes or less. I'm not trying to overwhelm you. I'm not trying to make you more stressed out. I just want to introduce you back to yourself, reintroduce you to your body, reintroduce you to safety and what safety feels like. And so, in those 5 days, you're going to watch one video a day, one short video a day, answer a few questions, and just create that space for mindfulness for yourself, just quietness and reconnection. And I know it's going to feel crazy at first, and you're going to feel like, I've done this so many times, this doesn't work, da 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 da. That's just you in your head, girl. That's again you self sabotaging. You can get off, you can fall off the horse 9 times, but as long as you get up 10, that is where the power is, right? There's a study that I'm going to let you guys go after this. There's a study that I love to go back to, and it's called the learned helplessness study, and I use this as an example, right? Basically, this study took some rats, I believe, and they put them in a cage, and they anytime the rats went to this specific um, area in the cage, they got electrocuted. So eventually, after getting electrocuted so many times, after being traumatized so many times, the rats learned that that thing was not safe. Okay, they learned that that thing was not safe. And oh, actually, it was to come out of the cage, right? They learned that when they come out of the cage, when they try to, they're going to get electrocuted. Okay. However, eventually the shock went away, the trauma stressor went away, but the rats still were assuming or feeling that that stressor was still there, so they wouldn't even go near the exit. They were keeping themselves caged in at that point. And there was even a point when the experimenters would pull the rats out of the cage to let them know, okay, hey, like it's safe out here. And what would the rats do? Actually run back into the cage, right? Eventually, after being pulled out multiple times, they learned in their nervous system that, okay, it's actually safe. The trauma is not here anymore. I can live a life outside of this cage. And that's the thing about healing, right? You can do the thing over and over again, and it feels like it's just not working, right? Take it from someone who has been in therapy since I was probably 13 years old, right? And I've had like wild therapists. I had therapists that re-traumatized me, to be frank with you. Therapists who gaslit lit me and said my trauma wasn't real and it was all in my head. I had therapists who talked more about themselves and telling me there's shit. Right? So I was like, who's really the therapist here? Um, yeah, I had therapists, quit on me because they felt like I was too much, because I, had a voice and had an opinion and didn't really like the way that they were doing things with me. But I'm still in therapy because I know that there's value in therapy. And that's just the way it is, right? And there's times when I fall off the wagon. There's times when I go back into familiar cycles and safe cycles because that's what I've been used to, right? And that's your nervous system's learning and you're training yourself to expand and be comfortable with something new, right? So whether or not you've done a 5-day journey, whether or not you've done meditation, you've done healing before, I want you to try this again, right? And try it again and again and again and again and again. And if it's with me, that's great. And if it's with someone else that resonates with you more, just keep going. Don't ever give up. And if you fall off, keep coming back, right? That's the journey of healing. It's not a destination, it's a journey. So 5 days, let me get back to this. 5 days to feel safe in your body. Okay. So, you're going to take that 5-day journey, 5 videos, 5 days of journaling prompts. It's going to take you 5 minutes or less. And while you're in the sanctuary, explore. Take a look around. Take a look at the programs that we have there. Take a look at the quick resets to help you re-regulate when you're in a hurry. Take a look at the 28-day cleanse where we learn to balance your energies, cleanse, detox your body, lower your cortisol levels naturally. You can do our emotional intelligence program, go through our divine feminine energy program, explore all of that for free for 7 days. Okay. And then if you don't want to stay, there's no commitment. You're not locked in. You don't have to stay beyond the 7 days. Right. But if you like it in there, you can stay. Lock in. Right now, we're at $9 a month to be a member of the sanctuary. We're soon going up to $49 because I've added so many beautiful programs and beautiful masterclasses in there. So, this is going to be something that you are going to get a lot of value in, and I truly believe that. So stay in a little longer if you like, okay? And if you do decide to join, the link is in the description. Right? You can go to the 5 days journey to feel safe in your body and send me a DM when you come in. Let me know what's bringing you in, what you're hoping to accomplish, and I will share everything I have with you because I want you to succeed. I want you to heal. I want you to feel calm, and I want you to enjoy your life again. So thank you all for listening. Let me know what you thought in the comments. Did this resonate with you? Are you a person who likes to do everything yourself? And why is that? Why did this start? Let me know. And I hope you enjoyed this and take care. Peace and blessings. Love y'all. Ciao.